Welcome back to Astrovision, Spirituality, and Tarot. As you could tell from the title of today's video, we're going to be talking about homosexuality and queer tendencies and where that could be found in your birth chart, or maybe the person that you're interested in, where that could be found in their birth chart and how you can navigate that. This is speculation, more so this is entertainment. I'm not one to go out here and throw out, nonsense for you guys to eat up and consume. When it comes to astrology, astrology is a science. It is studying, basic patterns from people born around the same time frame, within the same season, within the same month. And, certain people don't believe in astrology. Certain people do not believe in the science of astrology, and that is okay. Certain people don't believe in spirituality, and that is okay. But that is the main key point and the main topics, and that is what fuels my channel. So this isn't a video where, we're going to be discussing or brewing about anything that can be detrimental towards this community or people who represent and support this community. So I do want to put a disclaimer out before we jump into this video, just so you guys know that I'm not trying to persuade, or I'm not claiming for you guys to think or believe in anything that contradicts or conflicts with your own views and your morals, or anything that you stand and believe with presently, to this day, in the past, and future. Whatever it is, I'm not trying to do that. That is not my intentions. Here on this channel, we are internalizing viewpoints and perspectives through spirituality and through astrology, and using, the tools and the science provided to help other people heal and help ourselves as well. So for me, whenever I sense my gaydar ringing, or I want to take a look at someone's chart, or just in general for anyone wanting to do this, you're going to want to take a look at someone's Mars, whatever is aspecting their Mars, whatever planets that they have in the 7th, whatever is aspecting their Venus. Neptune as well can play a role with queer tendencies and being a part of the LGBT spectrum. You can take a look at what's placed in the 12th house, where Neptune is placed at in that person's chart, or where it's placed in your chart. And obviously Uranus is the sign of the LGBT. It is the sign of groups. It is the sign of being rebellious and not conforming to being a part of a group, and being a revolutionist and things like that. Certain signs and the aspects that are being made to these signs, the planets that are in the houses that are orbiting these signs, all of that can be played out to produce different outcomes. So it is not just a ABC 1, 2, 3 easy thing to predict if someone is gay, but there are certain red flags that can just really make your gaydar ring and go off. And especially if you have the gift of using intuition, then sometimes your gaydar might be right, your gaydar might be accurate. So any planet sitting in the 5th house, making aspects to the 5th house, which deals with, casual encounters, hobbies, entertainment. It also deals with our guilty pleasures. It can deal with rumors as well. And it deals with our friends. It deals with our rendezvous and casual sex, things like that. Having any of those planets that I've discussed with you guys being in the 5th house, it really can shine a light on that area. So for example, if you have Uranus here, you may not be a part of the LGBT community, but you represent it. You have a lot of friends who are a part of that community. Even having Uranus in the 5th house, it can just produce an unpredictability around these certain things. So around the entertainment that you like, around your guilty pleasures, around the rumors being placed on you, and even your casual one-night stands and things like that. It can produce an unpredictable nature. So this can play out with someone dating a girl that they meet online, and then they find out that it's actually a dude. This can also happen with Neptune being here as well, making things look a certain way, like they're one way when they're really not how it seems. That's Neptune and the energy of Neptune in general. So having that in the 5th house, you can run into a lot of deception, a lot of lies, cheating, and scandals surrounding 5th house endeavors, entertainment, guilty pleasures, rumors, friends, casual partnerships, and things like that. Also with any of these planets being in the 7th house, which the 7th house represents partnerships. It represents balance. It represents that balance of masculine and feminine energy. It also can play a role in where you compromise in your partnerships and in the things that you find enjoyable. Since the seventh house does rule commitment, if you have Uranus there, it could be very unpredictable how you love. Your love nature may be a little bit more cold, a little bit more unconventional, not, the normal approach. You guys may have more of a friends with benefits type of situation going on than the more traditional girlfriend boyfriend approach. It may be to where you guys are part of the LGBT family and it's not that traditional relationship. Even Neptune can produce fantasies. It can produce distortion and illusion. So you can also not have that typical or normal relationship or what's seen as the standard when it comes to relationships. Also, the 12th house is a place to pay attention to and look at what's aspecting the 12th house. For example, Mars in Libra in the 12th house can produce, a hidden love nature. This can produce a lot of secret love relationships or a lot of secret sexual encounters. And this is more so that energy for those individuals who actually enjoy to be more down low or live their life in a more closeted space. This just produces, a disharmonious, secretive love nature, a very argumentative and even abusive in some ways, just because it's in the 12th house and Neptune is one of those houses of being a victim and dealing with abuse. Someone with Uranus in the 12th could hide their sexuality, especially if it's Aquarius and Libra being in the 12th. This person could really hide how they truly feel about their love language and how they care for other people. They could really be compromising that and self-sacrificing that and hiding that with Aquarius being in Libra in the 12th house. This is someone who could be a part of the LGBT community, but it's hidden. Even in no public spaces, they probably just do not represent that community. It's very, very much so hidden. It's not something that people know about them. Having Mars in Aquarius as well, Mars deals with your sex drive. It also deals with your image and what you display, those first impressions, how people view you and things like that. And having Mars in Aquarius in the 5th house or the 7th house can produce someone, who enjoys being open and free about their sexual identity and, going after what they want. This energy can really point to someone not caring about labels, being open to try it all. And they're probably, very popular in their friend groups, amongst their friend groups, or popular amongst the extreme groups that they support, such as the LGBT family or the feminist family, or just being a part of that queer spectrum. Mars is a sign of passion. It's a fire sign. And so with it being in Aquarius, which is a fixed sign, you're really going to be fixed and focused and passionate on being your individual self, on living your truth and being who you are. And if that's in the 5th house, you're really going to express that forward with your friends, on a stage, in an entertaining way. And if it's in the 7th, you're really going to express that with your partners, with the people that you love, and really incorporate some harmony in your life pertaining to how you stand out in your own individuality or your sexual identity or your preferences. So here's some examples that I have for this energy really playing out and producing some queer tendencies within someone's birth chart. So first on my list, we have Will Smith. Now, he has Aquarius in the 10th house with his ruler, Uranus, being in the 5th. And this can point to some flamboyant behaviors, some queer tendencies. I don't know how high or how low he falls on the spectrum, but he is on my list for being on the spectrum, especially with having Uranus in the 10th house and the ruler being in the 5th. This plays a role with him being a good actor. This is the element of air, which deals with communication, and having it in the 10th house, which deals with your reputation and deals with longevity, discipline, and things like that. That plays a role in his career as an actor, but also having it in the 5th house, which deals with casual sex, entertainment. It also deals with being performative and being around your friends. With him having this energy here, I don't doubt that he isn't a part of the LGBT community, especially with his son sitting in this house as well. And then he also has Virgo. He also has Pluto and Virgo occupying in this house as well. He definitely could be a lover of, sex and everything that comes with that and enjoy it. But at the same time, he could be very careful with what he shows when it comes to this area and these qualities and these tendencies. You know, he is an actor. Actors have many personalities in their back pocket to shift into, you know, to zip into and zip out of. So with him having that Pluto and Virgo occupying in his house as well, he could just be very careful and clean up his queer tendencies. You know, Virgo is all about being tidy, and Pluto deals with investigation work, but Pluto can be manipulative and throw you off because since that is the house of investigation, they're going to be very good at it. He could just be very clean and manipulative about his tracks, you know, not really leave any breadcrumbs for anyone to come snooping him out. So I do believe, you know, Will could possibly be in the closet, even though he has a wife. His wife is very loose out here. You know, she doesn't care about his reputation, clearly. She has stepped out on him on multiple occasions. I'm pretty sure he has did the same to her. I don't think that they have a relationship that's based on love, but more so based on finances and materialism and things that, you know, can provide them comfort in this material life. Next up on my list, I have Lady Gaga, and she has an Aries sun in the 11th house, also with her Venus in Aries being in the 11th as well. This can produce and really, you know, equate to her having a strong love and passion for these extreme groups such as feminist Me Too movement or being cultivated in the LGBT community as like an icon. With her having that Aries sun being in the 11th house, Aries deals with war and it also deals with the physical appearance. So she could really be projecting a lot of that LGBT energy, which she does in her music. And with Venus being here as well, that deals with the arts, that deals with music. And so, you know, with her having that energy in the 11th house, that really, you know, can point to her being this icon in the gay community, but also having this militant type of supportive fan base that is, you know, ready to go to war for her. And then her having Venus in Aries, that's like turning your pain into art. So basically turning your battle scars into art and things like that. And with her having this in the 11th house, a lot of people can relate to that on a massive scale. A lot of queer people can relate to her with her being able to communicate to them in an artistic way and really express her passion for that community and express her love for that community and things like that because, you know, she has Venus in that house. So she is going to be very passionate about 11th house matters. Thinking about the greater collective and thinking about, you know, things that are bigger than mankind, and she very much could be a part of the LGBT spectrum. I don't know how high or low that could be for her, but she is a person that I did have to put on my list just because, you know, even her fashion statements, her music, it represents that community, and a lot of people of the LGBT community, for, you know, somehow, some way, they can really relate to her and relate to her sharing her pain and her sharing her journey with the world, because the 11th house can represent, you know, communicating with people on a global scale, but through an intellectual device such as technology and things like that. Now we have Dennis Rodman, which is a basketball player known for his eccentric behavior and being recognized for his cross-dressing ways. I do believe that he dated Madonna back in the day. He dated some other it girls back in the day. He also married himself. You know, he did that. He set it up. I don't know if it was publicity. I don't know how real or legal that is or how capable he was of doing that. But yes, that in itself is very Aquarian. He actually has a Taurus sun in the 4th house, and it's squaring Uranus, which can represent him needing to feel independent and needing him to display, you know, these unique and extreme personality traits. This also can be seen as, you know, controversial or just not popular. It doesn't meet everyone's standards. It's not what everyone's looking for, especially the collective. A lot of his fashion and stylistic choices were pretty much queer, and that can equate to the fourth house and also Taurus in general. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is feminine energy. It's a balance of both masculine and feminine energy. But with it being in the fourth house, which corresponds with the moon, which is very feminine energy, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. If you have your sun in the fourth house or have, a lot of Cancerian energy within your chart, you're just going to be very feminine. You're going to have a lot of feminine qualities about yourself. And that doesn't necessarily make you queer. That doesn't necessarily make you fall on the spectrum of being queer. But having this energy, you just have a tendency to be very empathetic and very understanding in a feminine way. And a lot of men who have this placement tend to think that they understand how, the female brain works and the female body and how to please and tenderize a woman. With him having this energy in the fourth house, and his sun also trines his Capricorn ascendant. So with Saturn actually sitting in his first house, this represents his career and that being on the display, that being, something that he's recognized for. So his public reputation and things like that. But this also can point to him not fully transitioning as a woman and restricting himself, not fully allowing himself to, go under the knife or fully go into the doctor's office and get the medication so he can transition or do things like that, because Capricorn does deal with restricting things. So with him having that square of Uranus be here, he has a need to stand out. He has a need to be extreme and unique. But with his sun trining Capricorn and that Saturn sitting in that first house, that plays a role into his looks and, him kind of looking a little goatish. He definitely isn't aging in a way that is seen as valuable to someone who has their sun in Taurus, but with it being in the fourth house, he does have a decent balance of that masculine and feminine energy. Next person I have on my list is Prince, the musician, and he actually has a Scorpio ascendant, which can point to, him being a promiscuous man and him displaying his promiscuity and also having just an alluring presence. A lot of people with this placement, if it's well aspected, they have an alluring presence, especially when it comes to them getting attention. It's more so for taboo things or promiscuity. That's more so how people notice them at first with having that Scorpio ascendant. But what makes Prince fall on the queer spectrum for me is his Gemini sun, with it being in the 8th house, and it's also trining Jupiter. So this can explain his ability to, morph into different sexual identities or different preferences that he may have for himself. So being on either side, he may have feminine preferences or masculine preferences. And that's because, Gemini rules both sides of the mind. Gemini rules multiple personalities. With it trining Jupiter, he could have a massive amount of energy of that, and it's just unbalanced. Unbalanced masculine energy, unbalanced feminine energy, and it's in the 8th house. So that makes someone very transformative. So that can explain him transforming into these different gender roles and having this androgynous look and persona and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he even switched roles in the bedroom with it being in the 8th house, because, the 8th house rules sex, it rules taboos and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did some cross-dressing roles in the bedroom, or if he liked that and enjoyed that in a woman or in a man. So, you'd be surprised with people in Hollywood, and nothing shocks me, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was an outcome that played out with someone having this energy in their chart. Next, we have Janelle Monáe, and she does identify with being on the spectrum or not being a part of the spectrum. I don't know how it goes. She claims to be non-binary. So she has a Virgo ascendant, and with a female with this energy, this can produce some masculine tendencies, or that's just how you may appear to other people at first before they really get to know you and peel back the layers. This can point to someone being very critical and paying attention to details, having like a modest fashion, looking very dapper, but also looking very uniform and coordinated, which she does well. She's a great example of that. She really expresses duality very well with the black and the white, and she pulls that off very well. I will say, a person like me being a Sagittarius, I would get bored of that so quickly, but it works for her. And she was a cover girl back in the day. That's what I really know her from, is being like into cover girl commercials. I don't really know her from her music, but nonetheless, she's actually a Sagittarius herself, and it's in the fourth house. So again, she's a great example of duality and balancing, both that dark and light side. And I don't know much about her personality, but when it comes to her fashion sense and her fashion style, it seems like she has some type of philosophical approach to that. Displaying that in an artistic way, that can really point to, her sun being in Sagittarius, but also being in the fourth house, which rules the moon. The moon is also feminine energy, and it equates to dualities. Speaking of the moon, she has a Gemini moon, and it's in the 10th house. I'm going to say it's in the 10th house, very close, tiptoeing towards Uranus. And that's just because with this Gemini moon in general, that represents her being androgynous, because again, Gemini energy represents both sides of the brain. It represents multiple personalities. These people are very flighty and unpredictable in nature, so they could switch, and play into being a female, or at least play into those traits of feminine qualities. They could play into the male qualities of being a male and being super masculine. And since it's the moon, she's definitely comfortable, displaying both gender roles, because Gemini does represent multiple personalities. So with it being in the 10th house, she really could be comfortable having the reputation behind that, and having the reputation of displaying duality and of displaying androgyny and things like that, because the 10th house deals with our reputation, it deals with our career in general, and she is known for, really displaying this duality in her style and being like this androgynous type of character. And another thing to note with Gemini moon, these people can play into being gay, they can play into being a part of the LGBT community, and especially I could see that being a factor of her doing that for her career, for her reputation, to look charitable, because Capricorn can do fake charity on the dark side of that. But I'm going to say she's pretty balanced. So I'm going to say, she isn't playing into, being gay just for her reputation or anything like that, or being androgynous just for the sake of having fame or anything like that. I'm not going to say that she's doing that, but with this placement, she very much so could do that and get away with it. Gemini moons in general, they can just throw you off. You may think that they're into you. Like, let's say it's a girl and it's your girl best friend. You may think that she's into you because she knows how to make you laugh. She knows how to hit those spots to make you sparkle and make you feel butterflies. But this sign is very flighty, so they switch. And the next day, she's with her boyfriend laughing in your face, and you looking at her with the side eye, with the stank face. And same thing with it's a guy. He could be stroking your leg if you're his gay friend, talking to you in some soft and submissive way, trying to really fill up on you like that. And then 2 days later, it's a whole different story, and he's trying to fight you or something. So Gemini moons can be like that, and they could be very flighty and just have that tendency to be fake. But the energy of Gemini can produce some queer tendencies, so I don't doubt her being a part of the spectrum. I mean, she has admitted to being non-binary, and I do believe if you're non-binary, you fall on the queer spectrum, because you have your options open basically for everything out there, because you're non-binary. So that places her on the queer list. Now, Harry Styles is another eccentric person, most known and notorious from playing the lead role in One Direction. And if you're from that era, definitely comment down below, okay? Comment below. But he already previously gave off these, queer vibes or these gay vibes even way back in his boy band, the fans saw it, the public saw it, and they kind of pinned him and another bandmate together and kind of made them seem like they were in a relationship and really created, this idealistic idea that was pretty much a fantasy that they were in love with each other. But I guess, they're friends and they really played into it. But I do believe that Harry Styles is on that queer spectrum. I do believe that he is. And that just deals with his Venus being in Aquarius. So anyone having their Venus in Aquarius, you're pretty much an open book. You're the type to take it to third base with your friends, boy, girl, whoever, however the package is delivered to you, you're gonna open it and you're gonna return, the message back to sender. That can happen with Venus being in Aquarius. And again, with him having that Venus in Aquarius, that really can point to, his flamboyant style. Having the need or the love and the passion for dressing very eccentric and dressing very different and unique and standing out. It's not normal for, a man to wear a dress or a tutu or a romper set or anything like that. Same thing could go for Prince because he wore heels and similar garments back in his day when he was very popular. Just in general, with that Venus being in Aquarius, that can point to some queer tendencies and placing him on the queer spectrum. Also, with him having the Sun and Mercury sitting in the 4th house, this can point to his reputation for being a singer, but also coming from a group and coming from like a band, because the 4th house is ruled by the moon, and the moon does symbolize the pack. It symbolizes the union, He also has Sagittarius in Gemini in the 3rd house. This contains Mars and Neptune and Uranus. This can point to someone who's open-minded and androgynous because Gemini does rule androgyny, but having Sag there, it can point to someone being open-minded and curious about exotic things. With Mars being here, Mars rules, your sex drive and your sexual orientation, but also your appearance, your physical appearance. And Neptune can point to some illusions and some distortion or even some hidden tendencies. So with him having this stellium in the 3rd house containing his Mars, I wouldn't doubt him being into same-sex activities or even group sex activities with Sagittarius being there. But for him, I could see it being more of an informational and fun, like educational thing because it's Sagittarius and Gemini. So having Mars here and having Neptune here, this is a person who's definitely going to want to learn about sex and in different ways and open to try it all, willing to try it all, especially with Sag being in Gemini. This is someone who is open to go both ways. And then next up, we have Birdman. And if you know about Birdman, I just think it's pretty obvious with him that he falls on the queer spectrum pretty high, or in the middle. I don't know how true that is for him, but it's pretty forced. Even when he's trying to hide his queer tendencies, they just really, shine through. And we're going to talk about that because that can be explained with some of the aspects. So he has an Aquarius sun and that sextiles his midheaven. So right there, that can point to someone being queer and being openly queer. That's because, having an Aquarius sun can correlate to the LGBT community. It can correspond to that community in general, with Aquarius symbolizing that group and massive extreme groups all over the world. With him having this sextile his midheaven, he cannot really, hide the desire for being eccentric and for living his life and being, true to himself. It's very difficult to do, and it's very difficult to hide that part of himself and to hide these queer tendencies because the sun likes to expose things. And he has the Aquarius sun that sextiles his midheaven, and the midheaven deals with your reputation and things like that. He also has Uranus and Libra, and that can point to him, kissing on Lil Wayne, probably kissing on other artists that he signed that are male, or, just really being in love and having a passion for things that are different, things that are unique. So really standing out and being eccentric and being, your own individual person, these people, they find that attractive, especially in their partnerships. Uranus and Libra, this is queer vibes. This is someone who is willing to date someone a part of the LGBT family, because Libra deals with partnerships, it deals with collaborations, but it deals with love, it deals with love, it deals with likability, things that makes us comfortable, and him having Uranus and Libra can explain him, kissing on Lil Wayne, having more than just a business relationship. I wouldn't be surprised if he did come out as gay later on in his life, or it was just exposed because, he does have his sun sextiling his midheaven. So that is a possibility because Aquarius is unpredictable. It's a very unpredictable sign. His Aries North Node trines Neptune, so I also wouldn't doubt if he were the type to fantasize about what he can do to the men that he has signed on his label. Just other men in general. I don't doubt that he hasn't had thoughts, especially because his Mercury sextiles his node as well. So he possibly can, low-key think about this stuff on the low, especially with Neptune being there. His Aries node trining Neptune, that can, explain this energy being hidden. And Mercury's there too, so, hidden thoughts. So he really can have hidden thoughts and hidden tendencies about fantasizing about, being with men or being with the artist that he signed. Neptune also does deal with art, so it deals with music and things like that. So he pretty much can have, a secret relationship that's more than business. And I'm not pinning that on any of the artists that are under him now. I'm not pinning that on them. But that definitely can play out and be an outcome with someone having this energy in their chart. And I really don't doubt that playing out at all. I don't. And speaking of, artists that he has signed under his belt, a next one on my list is NBA Youngboy. And that's really because he does display some queer tendencies. I don't know if that has to deal with him going to prison or going to jail or being in the industry of Hollywood, because, it's been alleged that when men go to jail or prison, they either have to compensate and act super tough so no one touched their button back there, or they don't drop the soap too many times. They have to really act super tough to compensate for their manhood being stripped away from them. Like, I know that's a thing that can take place in prison. It's like men can be stripped of their manhood, like them compensating for not being tough and having to act super tough in jail. And so maybe that can play psychologically on a person, or maybe they're super tough, but they get around people who are tougher and, get taken advantage of. There are a lot of stories about that stuff being a possibility and playing out, or playing a huge role, and men being emasculated when they come home, when they come back. They start acting a little more feminine or displaying some queer tendencies. So we're just going to go over the things that I noticed in his chart, starting off with his ascendant being in Sagittarius. So this just brings an exotic look. This brings a multicultural look. Someone who looks foreign to other people, or they just look very exotic, may come off childish, because Sagittarius is that sign of, carrying your inner child. Leo can also have some of that energy as well. Also, having Sag in the first house, or having it as your ascendant, can produce someone who comes off as like a smart aleck, who is very much a smarty pants to other people. NBA Youngboy has Capricorn Mars in the 12th house, and this can play out with him secretly liking men. I'm not placing that on him, but I'm just saying this can play out with him secretly liking men and feeling more comfortable sharing his passions and physical desires with men or people who are more masculine. And this also can play out with him restricting his sexual fantasies with them, and restricting like how far he's willing to go, because having Capricorn Mars in the 12th house, Mars rules your sex drive, but Capricorn is very restrictive. It tends to hold back, and it's in the 12th house. which deals with fantasies, it deals with illusions and things like that. Also, it deals with behind the scenes and things that are hidden. With him having that Capricorn Mars in the 12th house, I can see this playing out with him being the type to restrict, sexual advances that he may feel the impulse to act on, but possibly accept others that are being inflicted on him by these masculine people. So that does place someone with this energy to be a little questionable, to be on that spectrum when it comes to queer tendencies. And just from, some of these pictures that I'm showing you, I don't doubt that he wouldn't be a part of that spectrum. It's just something that's probably more hidden. And the 12th house does deal with prison and things like that. And speaking of that, having that Capricorn Mars being in the 12th house, he definitely could have had some sexual encounters in prison, and it's just a hidden thing that no one knows about. And then he has a Pisces moon in the 10th house, which points to, him being famous and him being in Hollywood and even being a singer or a musician, because Neptune and Pisces can represent that. And, having a Pisces moon in the 10th can point towards someone working in the public eye, and that can produce someone with the tendencies to self-sabotage and be very secluded. And that also again points to imprisonment and having that stained on his reputation, because Pisces deals with imprisonment, but the 10th house deals with the reputation. And then him having a Pisces moon, he could have had a mom, who was on drugs or very artistic. She could have been very artistic and Neptunian like, so she may not have been a super practical mom, and the house could have been falling apart in different areas. Or she could have, again, been the type to be very neglectful and have her bad habits that are very Neptunian but dark-sided Neptune habits. And he also has his sun in Libra, and it's in the 3rd house. I forgot to talk about that. The 3rd house is the house of Gemini. So this can explain him being a good rapper and him being great at explaining and expressing his love and his passion for communicating and sharing a lot of words that are a part of the dictionary and things like that. Him having his sun being the sign of Libra, being the 3rd house, that really can, play out with him being androgynous or going both ways, swaying both ways of the fence, because the 3rd house can play a role in, someone being androgynous, someone having multiple personalities, whether, that personality is feminine or that personality is masculine. So that is something to know and to pay attention to if you have that energy yourself, and if you have any of these placements or these aspects to any of the planets that I talked about today, definitely feel free to comment below and share your own thoughts and opinions about it. And I will see you guys in my next video.